About 2,000 years ago, I was a student minister, preparing to go before the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, which is the body that examines ministerial candidates for their readiness to become ministers in our denomination. When I was getting ready, we were advised to prepare what was called our elevator theology speeches. We were told that the committee liked to do role plays with the candidates. And one of their favorites was this dreaded elevator theology speech scenario. It went like this: pretend you've gotten into the elevator with a stranger, say in the lobby of a hotel, and as the elevator starts to go up, the stranger, who somehow magically knows that you are a Unitarian Universalist minister, asks you a theological question, such as, what is Unitarian Universalism anyway? Or, I heard you people don't believe in anything. Is that true? Or, do Unitarian Universalists even believe in God? You have until the 8th floor to answer. Go. Well, thanks be to God, I was in a study group with 6 other candidates, and so we would practice these role plays with one another and then critique each other's answers. And I was particularly terrible at the elevator speech theology. In part, I think, because I've never been a quick thinker. And in part, it was because I was not willing to fully enter into the spirit of the exercise. Even if someone knew I was a Unitarian Universalist minister, I thought skeptically, no one is going to ask theological questions in elevators. Well, I have to say I have never been so wrong about anything in my life as this. In the past 30 years, I've been asked theological questions on airplanes, probably not so surprising, but also in public bathrooms. I have had intensely personal and tender theological conversations while having my hair cut, while in the Market Basket deli line, at every single kind of social gathering, on most forms of public transportation, and as you already know, more times than I can count in the Dunkin' Donuts line. I once had a truly beautiful conversation about the nature of God in the Registry of Motor Vehicles waiting room. An oral surgeon once told me about his very beautiful near-death experience, and we talked about the existence or not of an afterlife as, and I swear this is true, he was yanking out my cracked molar. Now, he did most of the talking in that conversation, but still, I tried to convey curiosity and acceptance and reassurance through my grunts around the pliers he had in my mouth. As he was packing in the gauze, he started to apologize. But luckily, by then I knew what an honor it was to be entrusted with these kinds of stories and questions, even at odd moments. I actually had no idea this kind of thing would happen before I became a minister. But it turns out people need to talk about these things. Over the years, I've gotten a lot better at elevator theology through sheer practice, if for no other reason. So much so that for the last 4 or 5 years at Groton Fest, I've actually signed myself up for it. As some of you know, I sit in a chair in front of our church's booth with a big sign saying, "The minister is in. Profound questions answered, 25 cents." But last year we crossed out the word profound and just put all questions answered. because I realized that the pressure to try to come up with something profound was actually scaring people away. What I've realized over the past 30 years is that the vast majority of people ask theological questions from a place of really wanting to know, really needing to know. Unlike the stories in the Gospels about the Pharisees asking Jesus really tricky questions about religious law in order to trip him up, most people ask these kinds of questions from a very personal place. Like the woman in the Dunkin' Donuts line who recently asked me if I thought her child was in hell because that child had died by suicide. She needed an answer. And I was so glad, so privileged to be able to tell her absolutely no. The faith tradition I represent does not believe in hell. I don't believe there is such a place. But if by any chance at all there is such a place, your child is not there. Your child is held in a love vaster and greater and deeper than our understanding. Really? She asked me. Really? I told her. And this is why our theology matters. Unitarian Universalism is a wildly beautiful faith. It is hopeful and humble and humane. And when I hear about the hurt and the harm that has been done in the name of religion, the ways religion has been used to exclude or caused people to believe that God is punishing them or their child is in hell, it breaks my heart. And so often that is all people know about theology. So that is why I love to talk about Unitarian Universalist theology, and that is why I want you to talk about it, because so many people have never even heard of us, and they cannot imagine that a religion like ours even exists. So I want you to tell people. I want you to tell them what you have found in our faith and in this community. And I know that's a big ask. I know that that is hard to do, and it's hard in part because there isn't much in our theology that's simple or black and white or can be said in a single sentence. Though if you remember to use words like love, acceptance, inclusion, worth, and dignity, you cannot go far wrong. As we talked about last week, we are not a creedal faith. We don't have a creed. We don't require certain beliefs in order to be one of us. And one of the important parts of our theology is that people have the freedom but also the responsibility to figure out what we believe. Remember, we are the IKEA of religions. We are not the Jordan's furniture. We have to do some assembly work. But does this mean we can believe in anything or in everything or in nothing? We worship a dog or a table. And if we can believe in anything or everything or nothing, and it's different for everyone, how in the world do we talk about who we are? Well, first of all, I don't believe that Unitarian Universalism does in fact support the belief in everything or anything or nothing. We can believe in the things our own experience and our engagement with the world and our conscience lead us to believe. But as I talked about last week, we also hold beliefs in common. We have our own personal beliefs, but we also have what is called a systematic theology. Our faith tradition has answers to the big theological questions. It's just that they're not simple. So let's get back on that elevator. If I had 8 floors, I don't know how long a floor takes, but I don't know, roughly 4 minutes, to answer the question, what is Unitarian Universalism? Here are some of the things that I would say. Granted, I might have to talk fast. I would say that Unitarian Universalism is actually a proudly heretical faith, in the beautiful sense that the word heresy is from a Greek word meaning simply to choose. Our American Unitarian and Universalist ancestors rejected the prevailing religious orthodoxy in important ways, and they chose something different. American Unitarianism was born out of a rebellion against New England Puritanism, the same Puritanism that founded this church. But almost 200 years ago, Unitarians came to believe that it was Jesus' teachings, his life, not his miracles, that were the most important part of the religion that Jesus taught. And instead of concentrating on human sinfulness, the word they used was depravity, Unitarians came to believe in the possibility, the potential of human beings to become more moral, more ethical, and to create a more just society. This was a radical, radical belief then, and in many ways it still is. About the same time, those who came to be known as the Universalists believed that there would be universal salvation. They believed that the nature of God is love and mercy, and so that all of us would be reunited with God after death, no hell. In this, they were rebelling against the prevailing belief in the essential sinfulness of human nature, and this idea that was absolutely prevalent, that God was going to choose only a few people to be saved and the rest of us were eternally damned and there was nothing we could do about it. This was also a wildly radical idea. And in some religious circles, it still is. So we continue in the tradition of our spiritual ancestors in that we believe in the freedom to choose. We choose our religious beliefs. We also believe in the freedom to develop new ones as we change and the world changes around us, to move the ladder, as Mike put it so beautifully. Well, are Unitarian Universalist Christians then? My elevator mate might ask me. Yes and no. Our roots are planted deep in the Protestant tradition of the United States, and that has shaped us. It has shaped our buildings, especially here in New England. It has shaped our worship services, our holidays, our religious language. Some of us absolutely consider ourselves to be Christians now, and many do not. But what we mean by Christian is usually different than the traditional understanding. Unitarian Universalist Christians tend to follow, respect, honor, and love Jesus rather than worship him. We tend to focus on the life and teachings of Jesus rather than the crucifixion or the resurrection, but it depends upon who you ask, so it is wise to ask. We also proclaim there is truth in all of the world's religions. But what about God? The stranger in the elevator might ask. Do you believe in God? Well, in the 30 years I've been a minister, most people who ask me about God usually start with a statement instead of a question. They meet me, they learn I am a minister, and they say, often before even telling me their name, "Oh, I don't believe in God." And they say it super fast, like they want to put up a shield so I can't thrust a fencing foil of God at them. And I've asked this of many of you. I usually ask them to tell me about the God they don't believe in, because chances are pretty good I don't believe in that God either. A God who sits in the sky and judges us, or causes terrible things to happen to the people we love for reasons we can't understand. A God who condemns or could save a child, but chooses not to. And to this, I get to respond that I do believe in God. I believe in a God whose nature is love and grace, and that the word God is entirely inadequate. It's just a shortcut. It's just a sign pointing to something that is larger and deeper and wider than our imagining. It's just a word that we use to name something too big to have a name. And while in our faith tradition, people absolutely do not have to believe in God, they don't have to believe in any kind of higher or deeper or wider power. If the God they do believe in is causing them pain or suffering, it might be time to find a different way to believe. So these are some of my elevator theology answers. But I also have questions that I would ask of you if I got into an elevator with you. I would ask you, well, tell me about the God that you do or do not believe in. I would ask you, what in our faith tradition moves you? How has it changed you? Has it changed you? What have you found here in this community where we try to practice together what Unitarian Universalism actually means? And how can we help each other to live out our faith better so that our theology becomes embodied, so that it shines right through the words we speak and the actions of our lives? My friend and colleague Kathleen McTeague writes, "We are a troubled tribe, we human beings. But the message of our faith is this: we get to have a part in how the story unfolds. So it matters what we believe. It matters that our faith is about loving this life, this world, this imperfect, beautiful morning, and the people we share it with. It matters that our faith helps us, invites us to drink deep from every ordinary, precious moment."